Yay, what's up? Aloha Love Tribe. This is DJValerieBLove with Bitcoin Peace and Music. I have somebody here who is very interested in using value for value and Bitcoin for empowering musicians. This is Joe Martin. Welcome, Joe. How's it going?
I'm good, thanks, Valerie. Thanks for having me on the show. This is
Totally.
my first podcast, so yeah, excited.
I love it. And I love, we were just talking before we hit record, like that. I feel lucky that I've had a lot of folks who it's their first time coming on podcast. I feel like I'm a cherry popper.
Yeah. Well, it's a
It's
good
really,
place to start, music and Bitcoin, right?
I
So
know, right? It's our favorite stuff. So let's tell everybody here, you're a modern day troubadour, a singer-songwriter. You're interested in utilizing technology to help empower artists to, have a more fair opportunity to get their work out there and get paid without the middleman. So let's talk about, who are your influences musically and how did you get involved with Bitcoin and, using value for value?
cool. Well, the technology and value for value stuff is a pretty new thing that I've started to do, but taking it way back, I've been doing music all my life, really. Started playing the piano and singing from a very young age, and then picked up a guitar in my early teens. And then sort of by the time I was like 18, 19, started writing songs. And I always knew that I wanted to write songs, but really got into it about 18, 19, and then been doing that ever since. And it's mainly sort of in the country music, Americana, folky sort of genre. That's what I'm into. That's what I've been brought up on. And been out to Nashville a few times, which has been pretty
Really?
cool. Yeah, I love it out there. And I've been lucky enough to play a few shows out there and write with some great people out there. And then, yeah, I guess more recently, I've stumbled across this idea of value for value, which we'll get into. That's kind of the idea of sort of a different way to monetize your music and your work online as an artist. So,
And so let's ask, so first of all, like, how long ago did you go to Nashville? Did you get to go to Bitcoin Park? Was Bitcoin
no,
Park around? They just opened it up recently.
well,
So,
yeah, no, I was there. First time I was there was 2016. And then I went back 2017 and 2018, and 2018 was the last time I was there. And I miss it a lot. I really want to go back, but I don't know when at the moment. I've been just recording my debut album, which has been pretty expensive, so I'll have to save up a bit before I go back out there. But yeah, 2018 was the last time, so I don't know if that was around back then. But
no, they just kind of opened this up pretty recently. So Matt Odell and all the gang down there are rocking it hard. And so next time you go to Nashville, you got to go connect with all those wonderful people.
yeah, I'll be reaching out to them for sure. Yeah,
for sure. Well, so let's talk about why the genre that you chose. Like, what draws you to that kind of country folk singer-songwriter vibe? Like, you're in the UK, so does that
yeah,
have
it's
a
kind
popular
of
genre there?
not really. No, it's kind of strange, really. An English guy doing country music. There is a bit of a country scene here, but nothing like what you guys have got in the States. I don't know, what really drew me to it was kind of the lyric, the storytelling. I kind of think of it as like layman's poetry, really. Just kind of like being able to paint a really vivid picture with very simple language. I always thought that was pretty amazing. And that's what I focus on at my shows and my songs that I write. I try and just kind of like paint the most vivid picture that tells the most in-depth story in the shortest space of time. And I kind of see it as a challenge, but that's what I love doing. That's what I do. So
I love it.
that's what
It's
I love
like a
about
puzzle
country.
with words.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's kind of like trying to craft that song. You see, it's trying to craft something where there's not one word that either shouldn't be there or should be there, and nothing's going to waste. And it's every word has got a purpose, sort of thing. Yeah.
So efficiency with your words to get this beautiful story across. What do you find is, in your work right now that you're focusing on? Like, what do you think is the biggest issues that you're addressing that's kind of coming through in your inspirational process?
Do you mean in terms of like what I'm doing with the value for value stuff, or?
More just like your lyrics and songwriting. Like, what are some of the things that are coming through to you that you're like, wow, I need to make a story about this and make this song so that people can understand this? Like, what is there a theme that is overarching in your work?
Not one particular theme. I mean, songs are just kind of about my life experiences, really, like things, encounters I've had on the road with people, and anecdotal stuff and just anything really that I think would make a good song. The album that I'm about to release in spring next year has got a bit of a theme to it, kind of a loose theme that ties all the songs together, but each song kind of stands on its own as its own story. But yeah, I don't have one particular angle to write about one particular thing. I try and cover quite a lot of bases.
And what's the theme for the album? The what you're working on?
So the album's called Empty Passenger Seat. And it's kind of like stories of being on the road, and like the trials and tribulations of trying to get a career off the ground as an emerging original artist in this industry today. It's tough, but you know, I think it's worthwhile trying to pursue, because if we don't have new music coming through and new art, like what is there, you know?
Yeah, I so agree. And so let's talk about that. So the trials and tribulations of, you know, being a new artist in this day and age that's a little bit different. Like, what do you see as some of the biggest obstacles, and what do you see as some of the biggest opportunities?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, it's kind of, I mean, we're living in a completely different world now than we were 20 years ago in respect to kind of what the internet has done, really, for good and for bad. I mean, the internet, and we'll get into this and when I talk about the value for value stuff, but it's kind of like the internet has dematerialized and kind of demonetized art in general, or anything that's information based, right? Has kind of become free to replicate and duplicate and disseminate on the internet. And for, you know, kind of the last 50 to 70 or more years in the music industry, like recorded music was a huge part of the business model, huge part of the revenue stream.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of shaken that up a lot. And I think people are still, and labels and management companies and artists, they're all kind of either in denial or they're trying to come to terms with it. And it's like, no one really knows what to do about it, it seems. But as a consumer, like, you have everything at your fingertips. You know, you kind of have too much choice, if there's such a thing. I don't think there is such a thing, but it's like, yeah, it's kind of, you get overwhelmed with, you can listen to any song in the world, like as much as you want, whenever you want. And then the other side of it is, the other side of the coin is the live stuff, right? Like, so now a lot of musicians are trying to make up the shortfall in that just by gigging more and trying to do more live shows. And then I guess the problem with that is, like, if you're a smaller artist, like if you're a big sort of big theater or big stadium artist, you know, it's kind of not too bad. But when you're up and coming and you play in small venues and stuff, a lot of them, especially after the past 2 years, what's happened, like a lot of them are closing the doors, unfortunately. And yeah, it's kind of, everyone seems to be struggling by. There's a lot of musicians trying to fight over an ever shrinking number of venues to play. So there's that as well. But I think value for value can help in a certain respect. It can help alleviate some of that struggle, and we can get into why and how artists could use it and stuff.
And so what do you think, like, as far as, I mean, because I know when I used to DJ a lot, being on the road is very hard, you know,
Yeah.
and obviously I didn't produce original music the way that you're doing your singer-songwriting. It's different because I can get a gig and go play it, and I don't have to have a whole album recorded. That's what's fun for me. But
Yeah.
I think it is very challenging for artists nowadays. Like you said, you've got the attention economy. So whether it's digital attention or physical attention and opportunity to be in front of people. Have you done any, do you know who Mark Ribbolett is?
No.
Oh my God. I love him. I discovered him during COVID.
Okay, Mark Ribbolett.
Yeah, because he was somebody who was just in his bathrobe, and he's this like looper. So he would do these live streams of live looping, and he ended up, I mean, just over COVID, he just was like, fuck it, I'm hanging out and drinking beer and playing some music live. And I mean, he was very talented, but he got, you know, millions of people to start following him, you know.
Cool. Was he like live streaming sort of thing?
Yes, exactly. So he would totally rock live streams, and you know, you get to see his production process, you get to see him making mistakes and just whatever. So it was a really, really fun way to have that direct engagement with him, you know, and you could leave your comments and send him some donations if you wished. Is that anything that you've checked out for yourself?
Well, when lockdowns were going on, like everyone kind of jumped on the live streaming thing.
Yeah.
You know, everyone was doing it all of a sudden, and it was like if you were the very first person on it, it was kind of a novelty, and then it kind of the novelty wore off pretty fast. I thought so I didn't do anything in that time period, and I've not really done anything streaming wise, like live streams. Streamed a few gigs in the past, that kind of thing. But the times I've done it, I didn't really like it in a way, because it was kind of like I felt disconnected from the audience. Like I like having that immediate audience feedback right there in front of me.
Yeah, seriously, it's such a different ball game. I know I've done several like live DJ sets and live streamed, and I'm like, is anybody there? You know,
yeah.
Where are you?
Hype if you're watching. Yeah. Now, some people love it though, and some people do it really well, you know. But
yeah. Well, it's like a dance, you know, when you're doing a live show, you get this back and forth symbiosis, the symbiotic relationship with your audience, you know, and they feed you and you feed them and you go back and forth. And I feel like it's a very yummy place to be, you know, and with people. And so, okay. So what do you think, you know, because obviously we have a chance, so we'll get to value for value in a second, but this will segue into that part. You know, community building is obviously one of the most important things that you can do as an artist, you know, and so how are we engaging in a community? How are we building our community, whether it's in person or online? And obviously having like a patron model, you know, or Patreon, you know, where people can support you each month, and then get certain ways to engage with you as an artist. Is that anything that you've tried utilizing with, you know, with Bitcoin or with any, like with Geyser Fund or anything like that?
I've not done a Patreon thing so far, but the last release I put out was a live album. I recorded a gig, put it out as a double live album, and that was kind of like a Kickstarter to fund what is going to be my studio album.
Cool.
And it's funny, I actually purposefully didn't put it online, so people had to actually buy a physical copy if they wanted to fund it or contribute, sort of thing. And this was kind of before I came across the value for value thing, or I would have probably tried that to see if that worked. But this was like over a year ago, and that worked pretty well. I mean, I've shifted quite a lot of them at gigs and stuff, so it's definitely paid itself off. And not only that, it was free to record, so everything was kind of, after the printing of it, everything was profit, which helped a lot. But no, I've not done a Patreon thing yet. I'm going to be experimenting a lot more with Lightning and value for value next year that could be similar to that. I've got a few ideas on the boil, but just wondering how to go about it, really.
On the boil. I love it.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so what about, let's talk about like, how did you get introduced to value for value and Bitcoin?
I don't know. I just kind of saw, I think it was a guy called Gigi. I'm sure you'll know Gigi.
Oh, I love Gigi. He's the bomb.
Yeah. Oh man, he's so good. His writings are incredible.
Yeah.
I came across the blog he did.
That's his book right there. You see?
What?
See with the rabbit right back
Oh,
there?
the rabbit, 21 Lessons, is it? Yeah. Oh, he's so good. So I came across this this piece he did called How Value for Value Fixes the Monetization of Information. And I read this blog and it just made total sense, kind of blew my mind. And he starts off, I've got a quote from it here, so I'll just like read a bit from it.
Yeah, totally.
For the listeners. So it starts off, the internet has a problem. The problem with the internet is that information wants to be free. And if something wants to be free as in freedom, given enough time, it will be free as in beer. So he's saying that the internet made the cost of replicating and disseminating information effectively zero. So, you know, he's saying that information is like a non-rivalrous resource, You know, if you have an apple and I have an apple and we exchange the apples, then you and I will still have one apple. But if you have an idea and I have an idea, we exchange these ideas, both of us will have two ideas. And yeah, it just kind of, it blew my mind in saying that, like, you can't contain information once it touches the internet, and if people want it badly enough, they will get it, sort of thing. So it's kind of like, don't fight that, but embrace that. And basically sort of, you know, the idea of value for value is similar to the busking model, where you're playing the music or you're putting the music out for free, and then you're just asking people to give, if they got value from it, to give something back. And people know this, like when they see a busker on a street corner, they know that if they don't put some money in the hat, if someone doesn't put money in the hat, eventually the busker will stop and the music will stop playing, right? So it's kind of just taking that analogy and putting it over into the digital realm, and just saying, you know, I've created this thing, you know, put a lot of blood, sweat and tears into this, and this is my work, and if you like it, consider just giving us a little something for it. And the only problem before with being able to do that was, like with Visa or PayPal or all these legacy payment rails, is that you couldn't really send like a small amount over the internet.
Right.
Like there's always like a transaction cost, like a minimum fee that you can send. And there's nothing sort of malicious about that or anything nefarious about that from these companies. It's just the very fact that they have operating costs, they have overheads, you know, they got servers they're running, they got employees, they have software developers, you got people on the payroll, they got to keep the lights on. So they have to sort of like make a living, if you will. So that's where this transaction fee comes from. But if you can kind of replace all that with code, right, which is what Bitcoin and Lightning is, all of a sudden you can send a penny or less, you know, instantly. And the cool thing is, it is instant. There's no settlement time. It's straight away, and it's borderless. It's you know, as fast as the internet, it reaches everywhere. You just need an internet connection to send value. You don't even need a bank account to do it, which is pretty cool. So
it's so cool. I know it's like, seriously, it just boggles my mind how this has been created and gifted to humanity. Like, we love you, Satoshi.
yeah. No,
Let me ask
like
you.
it's like
Sorry,
magic,
go ahead.
right? I was gonna
Go
say it's
ahead.
like magic, you know, until you experience it, it's kind of like you kind of don't really understand it, or you can't believe that it could be possible, right?
Yeah.
So like, I've been reaching out to a few people about this value for value stuff that's in the sort of legacy world of, like, maybe they haven't come across it, you know, and I'm sort of saying, like, the kind of model for the streaming model at the minute doesn't really work, because like the artists really aren't getting paid at all, really, unless you're racking up millions and millions of streams.
Right.
So it's like, but someone's getting paid. Like obviously Spotify and Apple Music, well, Apple have all the rest of their business, like selling iPhones and stuff, but say Spotify, you know, it's paying its software developers, it's paying for its offices in London, it's paying for its servers, like, you know, but then it's not really passing on much to the artist. And then this model kind of disintermediates that and helps the fans give straight to the artist, which is how it should be. I mean, that's how it is at gigs, right? Like when someone comes to buy music, when I play a gig, they just give me £10 for CD, and I give them the CD, and that's the end of it. That's how it should be, really. I mean,
Let's talk about a couple of the things that are being addressed right now with this new model. Like, we've got a couple, you know, because right now the way that obviously the music industry works is, if you're have your music hosted on Spotify, they're hosting this monstrous catalog and distributing it, right? And obviously you have to deal with the record labels, etc. And they've got their big chunk. Spotify has actually a smaller chunk, believe it or not, and then the artists get a small chunk too. So, you know, so what comes into mind in, you know, a lot of conversations I've had with people with, you know, what's the new dream content dashboard, I call it. And I'm like, wouldn't it be great if, you know, we could have a monthly budget? Let's say it's whatever, $20 is my monthly content budget across all platforms, so whether it's video, music, articles, podcasts, memes, whatever.
Yeah.
And then at the end of each month, you aggregate how many minutes of content you consumed, and then you just, there's something that will automatically distribute it to all of those artists, right? The
Yeah.
issue with that is, and it's, getting addressed, but like, who's hosting all of the data? Like, who's hosting all of the content? So if you've got videos, it needs to get somebody, you got to pay for hosting of videos. If you have music, if you have any of it. So until we get to a point where we have decentralized, personalized servers,
Well, yeah.
that's
I
what
mean,
we're paying for to one, that's one of the ingredients of the issue we have to address, with this new.
yeah. I mean, maybe that is the end goal or the end dream. Like, would it be everyone's running a personal server, uploading their own content to that, and then there's a sort of application layer that can find whatever someone's looking for from that personal server and just stream it in real time? Like, because then you'd be hosting your own content, uploading it to your own device, and then sending that out. But I mean, that's very futuristic, I think. But I mean, it's kind of coming. Like, there are personal server things emerging on the market, but yeah, it's a long ways from that. But the other thing is as well, like, the subscription model kind of works. Like, and Gigi goes into this in his article as well. There's the kind of mental transaction model, right? Where if you had to make a tiny microtransaction for every single thing you did on the internet, like, your brain wouldn't be able to compute if that little thing you're doing is worth half a penny or
That's
whatever
right.
it is.
That's right.
And then, so the subscription model kind of takes that away. The only problem is, it's like, you may be paying like £10 or whatever it is for Spotify a month, but you might only use it, like, you might listen to it like once a week or something, like when you have your downtime, like on a Sunday or whatever. So for the rest of the week, you're kind of not listening to music, or you're not watching Netflix or whatever, but you're still paying that subscription. So I think that this model, at least, as well, could like offer a new way to do that, where you pay as you listen. Like,
you could, but circling back with Gigi's comments about the mental transaction costs. And so again, whether it's podcasts, like for Fountain, for example, we were just talking about how Fountain, for some reason, got just suspended from Twitter. We don't know why yet.
Yeah.
But with Fountain, unless you have stuff pre-set up, which is one way to do it. Again, that's your budget for, whether it's a month of streaming or however many minutes you want to do, there's ways to do it. But for me personally, like, I listen to a lot of stuff in my car or when I'm walking my dog, and I don't remember to go back and say, don't forget to stream some sats to Matt Odell or whoever,
Yeah.
So, and again, that mental transaction cost of every time I do something, do I have to sit and remember that? And so,
Yeah.
to make sure I'm streaming. So then I feel like, oops,
Yeah.
I'm neglecting my duty. And so again, that I think where you can eliminate that is having some kind of a macro wallet or something that has your budget for the month. So,
Yeah.
because my philosophy is like, look, I want to allocate X budget a month and give it to my content creators that I support. And so if one month I'm consuming 1,000 minutes of content, the next month I'm consuming 100 because I was on vacation or whatever, and the next month I consume 500. It just kind of, it doesn't matter what I consume. It's going to get equally divided up per minute, of consumption.
Yeah.
And so some months, some artists might get a little more from me because I didn't listen to other stuff as much or whatever. I don't know if that's the right model. It's not doable just yet, but I feel like there's got to be some kind of a hybrid.
So someone will build something like that, right? I mean, unless, well, I don't know if all the content would have to be hosted on the same app for it to figure that out. Otherwise, you'll be sharing data across loads of different apps. I don't know, but the other way to do it is maybe just a one-off payment as well. Like, because I was kind of like running some numbers of the difference between like what a podcaster could make from sort of streaming or podcasting 2.0. I want to call it streaming 2.0 because it could encompass music and film as well, right? And everything. So like what a podcaster could make from streaming 2.0 as opposed to a musician, and like the costs involved. And it's kind of the main differences is with like a podcaster and a musician. And this like, I'm not trivializing like podcasting or anything like that. Like what podcasts are doing, they're doing God's work, it's spreading the gospel, spreading great information. So, but it's kind of like I guess your upfront costs are like sort of an audio interface and like a microphone, right? Like an SM7B or whatever. And you're good to go. You start podcasting like straight away,
Yeah.
putting out content. I mean, for musicians, you can record from home and stuff like that. But a lot of the time, musicians kind of like, they're going into a studio, they're like paying for studio time, they're getting session musicians coming to play, and they got to get it mixed, and they got to get mastered, and then if they're having physicals, they got to get them manufactured and distributed.
Yeah, it's a
And
much higher production value.
Oh yeah, so
on all those levels, in addition to most people only listen to a podcast once. They're not like going, oh, I wanted this to be super high quality. I mean, you do want it to be obviously great quality. However,
yeah,
you don't have the detail and hours and hours and hours that goes into producing a 4-minute song. You know what I mean?
Right. And it's like, so, and even like an album. So I've just finished recording my album and it's getting mixed as we speak. So like, I think it's going to add up to like 40 minutes or 45 minutes of content, right? But like, it's kind of like costs many thousands to make it.
What do you think? What's your budget so far that you've got sunk on this album that you would say for 45 minutes?
It's over £5,000. So, and that's pretty, doing it on a shoestring almost.
Yeah.
Like if you kind of like go in big on it, you can easily spend tens of thousands on making an album. So, but what I mean is, it's like, that's going to last 45 minutes of time. Whereas a long form podcast could last like 2 hours, right?
That's a good point you're bringing up too. So perhaps if this magical formula is out there, you could separate like, okay, music might get a little bit higher.
Well, this is the
thing or something. I don't know. I'm just playing around with some ideas.
This is the thing. And not only that, but podcasts are a lot more frequent than music releases. So someone that's prolific will be putting out a podcast either every day or every other day or every week. A musician will put out an album every year or every other year. So the time scale is much different. The length of the content is longer for a podcast than for music, because the music's like condensed, right? And then not only that, you've got a lot higher upfront costs to do it. So I think that's just worth like noting for people that are doing the value for value thing, that think, oh man, I might want to bump up those sats that I'm streaming for the musicians, just because maybe there's so much more being sunk into it cost wise, and they're only releasing that music every 6 months to a year to 2 years, rather than every week or every day or whatever. Which is why it's like, who knows, it's still like, we're literally at day zero with value for value. So we don't really know how it's gonna play out. But maybe like the streaming sats thing will work for podcasting, whereas with music, it might be more sensible to just ask for like a one-time donation to like a BTC pay server. Like throw it up on your website and you say to people, listen to my album as much as you want, listen to it 100 times, I don't care, but just throw me a few quid, like a few dollars, a few pounds, like, and that'll be fine, And
so let's talk about that, because there's obviously, you can go buy music, you can buy individual tracks, you can buy an album, you can go to Beatport, you can go to Apple, you can go to all these different places and get your music. You can go to Bandcamp, and download stuff and support your artists that way. And so, this is a very good point, because I hear what you're saying. It's like the podcasts are long, their production costs are much lower compared to music. So how do we still move forward out of the old way of like, okay, I got to go spend, 99 cents on a song or $10 on an album, when I used to buy like I'm an old vinyl DJ, like if you bought one song that was a domestic print, it was $7 for one song, because usually you don't want the other stuff on the record. If I'm getting imports, and this was back in the 90s, in early 2000s, imports would be anywhere from $10 to $12 for a song that you liked. And usually, again, you don't like the other songs. They're usually like kind of the B-side or whatever. And you're like, oh my God, I'm playing fucking $12 for one song that's crazy. And so people don't have that perspective of, wow, it costs a lot of money to produce this stuff. And so how do
And it's
ship
kind of
that.
like it's a weird thing because like I guess pre-internet maybe like even like into the 90s people were paying like £20 for a CD. And I think when
Right.
the internet came along and Napster and LimeWire and stuff, they thought, oh my God, I can get this for free now. This is like life changing. I've been paying £20 for a CD for however long. Um, and it's like, but when people buy something physical, that they see like, even though there is no more intrinsic value, I don't like that word, but intrinsic value in a physical thing, they're still buying the music, but they think because I've got something in my hand that's worth £10 or giving the artist 15, £20. Whereas if it's digital, like they don't want to pay for it, even though it took pretty much the same amount of cost
Yeah.
to make it, regardless of if it's digital or if it's physical, you know.
Well, and I think this is where the conversation can circle back to relationship building with your audience, right? And so how
Yeah,
do we as artists, you know, utilize the different community building tools out there so that, because like I'm in a couple of different groups with people that I just pay $10 a month, $12 a month because I like their music or I like their writing, whatever. And so it gives a chance to like get to know them a little bit better. They have monthly calls and you can just drop in and be like, hey, what's up? So I think that's an interesting add-on, you know what I mean? In addition to
yeah,
because there's no one way to do it. You have to have multi-prongs of how you're going to generate a sustainable living as an artist. It's not easy.
yeah. And at the end of the day, like the whole value for value model just from the start says you're just asking people, like it's all voluntary. Like you're not saying you have to pay me. It's like you're putting the music out there and saying, you know, please, if you value this, you know, consider giving something back. And 9 times out of 10, like a lot of people will give you something. And like when I put my last song out, my last single, like sats were flowing into my BDC pay server, and like I think the average transaction size, I broke it all down in a Twitter thread, the numbers, I ran the numbers. I'll give you the link to the Twitter thread so you can put it in the show notes.
Okay, great. That would be awesome.
Like the average transaction set, I made £80. And I've not made £80 on a digital release ever because I've not really had a way to monetize it. I just stuck it up on Spotify and that's the end of it. But I made £80, which isn't like a lot, but it's like better than nothing, right? Like,
Yeah.
and the average
Dinner, many
yeah,
dinners.
yeah, the average transaction size was a pound or $1, like surprisingly. The smallest transaction someone sent a sat, just probably for a bit of fun, which is like 0.00 whatever of a penny. But the highest transaction that was sent was like £10. Like someone sent £10 for a song they couldn't even download. And I was like, what? That's crazy, you know. So you just don't know what people are gonna give.
Well, and that's
Um,
like what Adam Curry talks about. You know, he says like, let people make their own choice. He's like, some people have given him like $500 for sitting
yeah.
there listening to his show. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. You know, because
Well,
obviously they must be like regular people getting some value from his content, you know?
you can listen to a podcast and they could say something that sparks an idea that could end up changing your whole life. You never know.
You never know.
So it could be worth that to them. So yeah.
I think it's fun. I mean, I think the opportunity for all of us as artists and, you know, creators, it's like, let's get um, our experiences and best practices and share them with each other so that we can be like, oh, have you tried this for your audience or for your launch? You know, and I think it's really important that we have lots of conversations with how we're utilizing all the different new technology. It's difficult to keep up with. Have you heard of Get Mash or Albi?
Yeah, so I'm using Albi at the minute, and I've been speaking to the guys at Get Mash, to Jared over at Get
Yeah,
Mash.
Jared's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to get something up and running on my website. That's just basically it's going to be called Backstage.
Cool. Ooh, I
And
like it.
yeah, and it's going to be a paywall that people can blast through for a few sats or whatever to just listen to exclusive content. But again, this is kind of like the debate that's going on. It's like someone could blast through the paywall and just like take a screenshot or take a recording of whatever's behind there and then throw it out there for free, like if they wanted to. But I don't think people would. But it's kind of like back to that whole thing that information can't be contained, and it wants to kind of be free. But I mean, it'd be cool to try it. I'm going to try a load of things. I'm going to try paywalls. I'm going to try just the streaming stats thing on Fountain. I'm going to try just having a VC Pay server open on my website. So just multiple different things and just see what works over time, really.
I think that's the approach. Like, we're lab rats, right? We're just doing experiments constantly as humans in every area of life, right?
Yeah.
And
well, the thing is, there's no downside to this as well. I want to like kind of stress that. It's like people have their music on Bandcamp and YouTube and Spotify and Apple Music and all this stuff. So it doesn't hurt like trying this approach as well, because the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to make a little bit more money than you were before.
Totally.
Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's not really I can't see any downsides to it. So yeah, I don't know. I think like hopefully in a few years we won't be having to sort of explain this concept to people, and people will just get it, right? Like people will be doing it, you know, because it will make sense, and it does make sense, but it's early. So
well, you're probably pretty young to remember this, but in the old days, back when I was a kid, we used to get mail, physical paper mail.
Yeah, too young for that.
Oh my God. But like different record labels, like Columbia, I think I remember it was Columbia was one of them, but they would send you, and this was really interesting. I don't know, this popped in my head for some reason. So let's play with it for a minute.
Right.
They used to send you this little, envelope, and it was filled with, get your 10 free, records for a penny or something, and you're going to join the music club of the month. And what it had were all these like little stamps that were like the covers of the record albums, right? And so you would be like, oh, I want to get this record album, I want to get this one. And then you would take all the little stamps and stick them and put them on the piece of paper, and you would send it back to Columbia with the 1 penny, but knowing that like, okay, now you're going to be getting like a $10 a month subscription after you get these first free songs, but then it's going to, each month you're going to have an opportunity to get another song that you pay for. So it's like it's the oldest.
It's like loyalty points for like a supermarket. So
kind of, it's like it's like your freebie opt-in that they do in marketing right now. Like, oh, give us your email and we'll send you, this free thing. And so, and then obviously you get in the funnel of like, okay, now we want to sell you some stuff, but they had that there up front. So I'm just wondering, like, is there some kind of interesting way for artists to think in terms of like, well, that was a kind of a fun thing, because the reality is like you said, there's so much content out there, right? How do you decipher what works for you as a consumer when there's literally millions and millions and millions of songs available? And then, as an artist, it's like, how do you get to those millions and millions of people that are your people that are going to like, say country and Western genre or singer-songwriter or rock and roll or whatever. And so, the record labels and the marketing departments and the Spotify's with all their great algorithms, they have a great purpose, and we do have to keep in mind that either we're going to have that old system and then we adopt that financial model, or what can we take that works from that system and put it into a new system? Because we still need to have reach and marketing and PR and communication to get your message to the desired audience, So how do we do that?
I mean, I'm not trying to knock streaming services like Spotify and stuff. I mean, I use Spotify. I mean, I'm a customer. I like consumer of all the content, and I'm on there. My music's on there. I'm not trying to knock that at all. But it's like as well, like what's happened is they've kind of like turned music into quite a passive thing in a way, I think, because you listen to stuff and you just put a playlist on, and then it kind of like the algorithm will kind of learn your listening habits and then suggest what you might like. And sometimes that's good because like you discover artists that you probably would have never come across.
Totally. Yeah.
Like, because there's so many people out there now, the world's so big and there's so much stuff, like you'd never have the time to find these people, and it's kind of offered to you, and that's great. But it kind of, in a way, it's turned the music process from an active thing into a passive thing. Whether that's a problem, I don't know. But I mean, like back in the old days, right? Like people would actually leave the house, go to a record shop, flick through the vinyl Yeah, and I look at one that had a nice sleeve maybe and think, oh, that looks cool. I want to put that on. They put it on in one of those booths and stand in the booth and listen to a few tracks and then decide whether they wanted to buy it. And it was a very like active process. Whereas now it's just like you plug in your phone or you have your phone some Bluetooth speakers and you get suggested things and you just pop on a playlist. And then you like cooking or doing the dishes while the music's on. And it's like that whole process of like having something, sitting with it, looking at the artwork, reading the sleeve notes, putting the music on and experiencing it. Well, that's kind of gone.
It's totally,
and I don't know, I don't know if it's coming back, if it will ever come back. Maybe that's like an age that's passed us by now. But I don't know. I kind of feel like I don't know how if value for value will change that, but at least with value for value, it's kind of like the way I see it is as an independent artist, it will be like you're sort of what you'll be doing is trying to cultivate. It doesn't even have to be a huge fan base, but like a fan base of a few thousand, maybe really dedicated fans, like really diehard fans. And if they can zap you a few quid or a few pennies or whatever, like every time you release something, or even if you put up a cool video, like on YouTube or on your social media, they can zap you a few pennies for that. Like that'll add up like very quickly. And all of a sudden, like a small independent artist that was struggling to get by could actually make a living, like a decent living. Not going to make a fortune, but they can make a living. And for a lot of artists, that's all they want, right? They just want to make a living off what they do. And I think like in a few years, once this tech develops and network effects build up, like that could become an achievable thing for a lot of people.
do you think that, like, for example, Spotify, right? You know, they're villainized for not paying their artists enough, but have you seen the documentary, or it's kind of a docudrama about Spotify? I think it's called like Playlist or Play Song List or something. It was on, I think it's on Netflix.
No.
It's actually, it's worth watching. It's a really good, it's like a 5 or 6 part series, and it goes through the different, you know, what how Spotify came to be from the different lenses of like the old record executive that is getting taken over, from the founder of Spotify, from the artist, from the lawyer, from the tech guy. So it's very, I love the way they did the story. And so each episode has its own kind of lens of how, you know, Spotify came to be.
I'll check that out. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess like Spotify's kind of like defense was kind of, oh, well, Napster and then LimeWire and Pirate Bay kind of made music completely free. So at least we're trying to have a subscription model where we can give the artist something. But
Exactly.
this was in the days before the internet had a native currency, and the currency was attention. It was people's attention, and it still is people's attention. Like all these platforms are designed to keep you on them as long as possible, to show you as many adverts as possible. And if, you know, it's the old thing, if something is free, then you're the product.
Yeah,
Exactly. And
what do you think about Spotify as an example? Because this is like, to me, the most popular avenue for people to get and, you know, discover new music and stuff. I mean, like I have a paid subscription to Spotify for my family and I, because we all love to listen to music and it's an easy way for us to get it. But again, I still feel like what I would love to see integrated into Spotify is Lightning. Like, why not combine Fountain, you know, the best practices that Fountain has, and then layer that on top of the base layer of the subscription model, so that then you can look at the end of each month. Here's your statistics. I listened to the Rolling Stones 20 times this month, and so I want to send them a couple extra sats for a tip, you know? So rather than having those microtransactions every time I listen to a song, at the end of the month, there's like something that comes through that's like, you listen to these, you know, 500 hours or minutes or whatever it is. Would you like to, you know, have part of your subscription budget go? Like Tidal's trying to do something like that. Are you familiar with Jack Dorsey's other company, Tidal? And so they're trying to integrate that. They charge more. I think their interface is not very, I don't know. I don't love it. I'm just used to Spotify. I mean, it's similar to Spotify, but I don't know. It's got a little ways to go. I mean, what do you think about something like that?
I don't know. I don't know whether these companies will want to integrate something which will disintermediate the payment flow, unless they do take a cut of all the Lightning transactions that are going through somehow. Because it's like, I guess they would want control over the flow of funds, because otherwise, like, you could listen on anything. I mean, I guess it's got a network effect, and people like the user interface of something like Spotify. And a lot of the time, if all their playlists are there and all the music are there, they're not going to want to switch to another platform. And as long as it works, like, a lot of the time, people that are listening to the music don't think about the artist. I mean, I think about the artist because I am an artist. So I'm looking at it through that lens. But I guess the average person just, like, doesn't really care where their music comes from. They just want to listen to music. So it's more of, like, I think it's more of an education thing, really. And it'll have to be a grassroots thing, like bottom up, of just indie artists saying at gigs, like, look, you know, I'm not making money from music online, and this is a way that I can, and it doesn't cost you a lot, but you can pay me directly.
Well,
I mean,
so
a lot of, sorry, I was going to say, a lot of people at my gigs now, well, I'm finding more and more that people are coming up to the merch table where I'm selling CDs, and they'll buy a CD, and then they'll say, like, oh, I don't actually have a CD player anymore, but I just wanted to support you.
mhm.
Which is kind of strange. They're like, oh, I'm going to go listen to this on Spotify, but here's a tenner because I want to support you. And that's interesting. Like, some people are kind of getting it. They know that the artist, like a smaller artist like myself, won't get much, if anything, off Spotify. So,
Well, so here, so what I wanted to share, and this is where I'd be curious how this works. But so, for example, like, so I'm on Desert Dwellers on Spotify right now. So these are some friends of mine, and
okay.
They've got like a make a contribution via PayPal,
Yeah,
right? And
that's
so
the thing. Yeah.
that, to me, I don't want to use PayPal. Like, you know what I mean? And so the fact that the Spotify somehow has integrated this fan support in here, it's like, can we, yeah, and it just opens up PayPal. Like, ew, no thanks. I don't want to give PayPal any of
No.
transaction costs. So why not? I mean, it would be interesting, I think, if all of us artists said, hey, yo, like, integrate, a Lightning wallet somehow, just kind of how we have tips in Twitter that we
Yeah.
could utilize. Like, can we do something like that?
So you mean, like, Spotify would be getting the monthly subscription you pay that comes out your direct debit or whatever, and then on top of that, people can tip? Yeah, possibly. I mean,
But putting together a separate wallet, to me, so, because, like, right now, if I go and I subscribe, or, if I want to go give these guys a little tip, I have to just do it to them directly. Then I have to go to PayPal, and it's all this hassle, right? So wouldn't it be easier if, again, if I had, like, whatever my subscription dollars amount that I pay, but if on top of it, as a hybrid model, let's say I want to add $5 a month or something, or $10 a month extra for tips, right?
Yeah.
And instead of me having to sit and go, who did I listen to? Whatever, just give me the data at the end of the month. And then whoever I chose to listen to musically, which, and not, obviously the podcast could be a little different category. Like you said, that's a great point. We could stream sats just automatically. And then you can start having different engagement with your audience based on, oh, wow, thanks a lot. You sent me that $10. Like, that was a really nice tip. Kind of how we can do on Fountain. So to me, I would like to see the functionality of Fountain and Spotify
mixed together.
unite, have a little
Absolutely.
baby.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main barriers, right, at the moment, are just, like, the onboarding onto the Lightning ecosystem. Like, I think that, and this is where I'm holding back, pushing this to my regular listeners and fan base, as opposed to, like, Twitter, like Bitcoin Twitter, is just that, like, the average person doesn't know how to get hold of sats to send, really. Like, or that, like, no one's going to go to an exchange, like, sign up with, like, a passport, take a selfie, buy some Bitcoin, like, put it on off chain onto Lightning, and then load up a wallet and then send it to Fountain to stream me sats. it's
Totally agreed. And so how do we just get it
process.
so we can accept from wherever they are? Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, I mean, you have Strike where you are, I'm guessing now, right?
Yeah.
And are you using Strike?
I don't
moment?
use Strike. I
No,
have a
no.
Strike, but I don't utilize it. But it's a good onboarding tool. Like that's the thing. We
Yeah.
need to have easy onboarding for normies, you know, to understand like, hey, this is how we do it.
Until something like a Strike comes out in the UK, where I can just say to my fans, hey, just download this app. It's like Uber. Just put your card details in, and you're ready to go. You can start scanning QR codes, and like you will get a lightning experience with your pounds. You know, your like from your bank account.
Yeah.
And that's it. And like they won't have to they don't even know what they're doing. It'll just be like seamless, and they'll be able to send pennies, you know, like instantly. So
Okay. Yeah. I know it's seriously going to be so cool when all of this is,
but I think in the next few years it will just become like the internet. It will just be baked into everything. So I think like a company eventually like Spotify will just have it baked in, and it just because it will be everywhere.
yeah,
You know?
it's going to be everywhere. So let's kind of, what I want to do, I want to share before we wrap up, I want to share High Gravity with everybody
Cool.
who's listening.
Nice.
Okay. And so is that okay? So tell us a little,
Sure.
give us a little prep on this song.
Okay, so the story behind this song, I wrote this on my last trip to Nashville in 2018 with a guy called Ben Jones. And
Okay.
basically, the night before the songwriting session, I went downtown Nashville to a few bars. And I went to this bar and I ordered a beer, and it came in one of those schooner glasses, those 2/3 glasses. And I said to the barmaid, I said, does this not come in pints? And she was like, no, man, that's a high gravity beer. Are you crazy? And I was
High
like,
gravity beer? What's
yeah.
that
And
mean?
I thought it was an Americanism. I hadn't heard of that. And she just said, oh, it means it's strong beer, like a high percentage beer. So
Okay.
I was like, okay, I'll have one of those. And it was great. And I had a few more. And then the next day, the next day I woke up feeling pretty rough, and I had to get to this songwriting session, and I couldn't, you know, I didn't really have any ideas to take with me, and I was struggling to get out of bed. I was thinking, oh, this high gravity is holding me down. And I was like, boom, there you go. There's the idea.
There you go. There's your
But,
inspiration for this track. All right,
so
let's hear
yeah.
it. Okay, we won't listen to the whole exact song. Do you want me to start at a certain point or start at the beginning?
Just play a verse and a chorus. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Can you hear it okay?
Yeah.
Empty bottles on my floor, number written on my hand. I don't know who the number's for.
The number on your hand. You don't know who
And
it's
I
for.
won't try to pretend, 'cause I'm so heavy from that high gravity. I don't know why I do the things that I do. It's like I'm glued to the bed, hearing voices in my head that say it's always one too many rounds. Now that high gravity keeps holding me down.
High gravity keeps
There you
holding
go.
me down, baby. Oh my gosh. That's awesome, my friend. So
Thank you.
yeah, heck yeah. Okay, so let's talk. Where can everybody find you online?
Well, on Twitter, I've started tweeting more recently. I'm at Joe Martin Music on Twitter, Joe Martin Music on all the socials. My website is joemartinmusic.com. I'm putting out an album next year. I'm going on a UK tour, 15-date UK tour of the country.
Nice.
And there's a lot more like exciting things in the work to do with value for value, Bitcoin, the releases that are coming next year. So I'm excited for that, seeing where it takes me.
Awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm excited to see where it takes you too. Let's keep sharing some best practices. I know Jared just reached out to me yesterday. He's like, we've got this new thing that I want you to check out. I'm like, okie dokie, I got to get it going. So we'll see what's happening there. But I think it's going to be a good journey for all of the artists, you know, and helping each other out, move forward so that we can keep producing beautiful artwork for the world. And so
Absolutely, it's an exciting time. You know, there's a lot of shit going on in the world at the moment, but it's kind of like when you see stuff like this being made, it kind of gives you a little bit of hope. Okay.
it does. And yeah, so how about a final thought, like if you were talking to yourself 5 years ago as an artist, if you're talking to a young version of yourself, so somebody who might be listening right now, who's thinking about, how the heck am I going to do this? This is too much. Can I, what would you say to a younger version of yourself and somebody who might be listening as a young artist?
I'd say there's a lot more sort of like opportunities with the internet, and now this value for value and stuff coming along. And you can sort of, I think it's achievable, or it will be more achievable going forward to be your own label, and be, and sort of make a living from this. Like, so I'd say, like, learn your craft, dive deep into it, and kind of, and just gig, get on the road, get out there in front of people, but also with this, just kind of like learn about this tech, how it's developing. It's moving so fast, it's so hard to keep up with everything that's going on. But I think the next few years is going to be exciting, as more and more people come on board. It gets easier to use. So I mean, and it's good to be on the forefront of it, because who knows what's going to happen. But hopefully, yeah, it's a network effect. So more people are going to come on board, and so just dive deep into the podcast, the books, all the big names in the space. There's a lot of knowledge out there, and it takes a long time to get through, but it's worth it.
It's so worth it. I know. I feel like I was gone for 3 weeks, and I'm like, I was in person. So it was nice being with lots of Bitcoiners in person. So I got to have a lot of that, but I'm like, I'm not caught up on all my I'm never caught up on podcasts or anything.
You can never catch up anymore. There's too many.
There's no such thing as catching up. That's an impossibility. Well, I really want to thank you for taking time to come and talk about value for value and your passion and music with everybody. I think it's great to have a lot of different conversations about this, because we never know, what are we going to discover from each other, like that we learn.
Of course. Yeah.
So I'm really excited. And I can't wait to hear your album and get it out there with the world. Definitely let us know when it's live.
I'll send you a copy. Yeah.
That'd be great. Cool, man. All
Thanks,
right. Well, everybody, this is the Bitcoin Peace and Music podcast. And once again, I'm your host, DJValerieBLove. And I'm so grateful to have Joe Martin here, who came and rocked it from, you're in the UK right now, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so thanks for staying up late to talk with us. And,
No worries.
make sure you guys go check out the show notes at DJValerieBLove.com. And you can follow us on Fountain, I hope, as long as they're still doing okay over there.
Fountain's not down. It's just off Twitter.
Yay, come on, Fountain. Oh my God. But I hope you guys have a really great rest of your day and your weekend, and happy December. Oh my gosh. Can you believe it's the last month already?
It's crazy. Yeah.
I know, right?
Very.
All right, everybody. Thanks again, Joe. I really appreciate it. And until next time, my friends, peace, love, and warm aloha. Ciao. Yay. All right.